What makes a Grail? Can we just define that really quick? I think that should be at the top of the video.
Just like a watch that is high priority on your list that you will for sure own one day or plan to own one day.
It's just a little out of budget.
Yeah, either a little out of budget at the time.
Or rarity.
Or extremely rare, yeah.
Hi guys, I'm Patrick.
I'm Adam.
And this is Clock,
Stock,
and Barrel. Coming at you with a consumer's opinion on everything watch related.
Yeah, today we are talking Grail Watches.
Grail Watches.
A lot of pictures incoming.
Raymond Weil stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff from Seiko 5.
Shitters.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Hey, that's cool, dude. You know what? It's like...
Yo, it's cool, bro. Whatever, man.
It's whatever. It's on my wrist.
But really, we are talking about Grails today. So you guys have seen the crazy watches that we've owned. And I get to purchase a lot of watches that I want to own. But I still do have some Grails, and I actually own a couple of my so-called Grails.
And just so if we have new audience members or people that are new to watch collecting, so you guys know what a Grail is. A Grail is a watch that you definitely want in your collection.
Yeah, it's like a must-have.
It's a must-have. It's something that it's very desirable, but is unacquirable or unobtainable because of its rarity and or its costs in the moment. But it's something that you'll save and or search for years. So
sometimes maybe Grails don't work out. Sometimes. I would say most of the time they probably do.
Yeah.
A good example, I'll just kind of knock it off the bat. My no-date sub and my Panerai PAM 380 were technically Grails when I was kind of going through my collecting phase. And I don't own the Panerai or the sub anymore.
Nope.
But the first Grail that I finally was able to get, we'll kind of start out with Grails that we actually own.
You purchased that first too.
Was the really MM300. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I sold this, not this exact one, but I sold my first MM300 because I needed the funds to fund, actually, the no-date sub.
And this is an earlier video on the channel, so you can actually check that out.
So I sold that, reluctantly.
Yeah.
And I ended up selling the sub, and now I have an MM300 again. So a lot of you guys know the MM300 is kind of the top Seiko diver that you can get. That's non-Grand Seiko diver.
Yeah.
There's the 62 Moss reissue and a couple other ones,
Bargain
limited editions.
Limiteds.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But overall, MM300 is kind of like that quintessential Seiko kind of Grail diver. You know what I mean? And absolutely adore this watch. Might be one of my favorite watches of all time. A good friend of mine who actually owns a bunch of ridiculous watches. I'm talking like vintage Rolex, Daytona, stuff like that. He actually
just lent you. He sent that Explorer.
He lent us
to get service.
Oh yeah, he's got a beautiful 1016 Explorer. He lent us the LW, the Linvertolin, and the Speedy Dark Side of the Moon.
Correct.
He says the MM300 is one of his favorite watches of all time, and this is coming from someone who has a ridiculous collection.
$2,000 watch, and then a collection of watches that are like $20,000.
Yeah,
within the craziest prices.
Exactly.
Yeah. This Grail is one of his favorites.
So I absolutely adore the watch. On rubber, it shines. On the NATO, it shines. On the bracelet, it's amazing. That's a Grail that I had and I now own. And my other one, when I first started collecting, I think a lot of people strive to kind of one day own a Rolex. I think that's
some form or other.
Right. In a lot of people's collections.
Generally a Submariner. Or like a GMT Master.
And when I first started collecting, I either wanted the no-date sub or a 36mm Explorer. And then 36mm Explorer was actually the Rolex that I purchased first. It was just a head only. Part of the reason that I was able to purchase it at the time was because a price came up that I really couldn't refuse. And I was like, wow, this is my one opportunity. I had to jump on it, right? Didn't have a choice. So I have that. It was my first Rolex. It is also, coincidentally, a birth year. So that is a Grail.
Uber Grail.
Yeah.
As they say in Germany.
Yeah. That is officially a keeper as well.
Yeah.
So 2 Grails that I officially have in my collection. The Speedmaster actually was not a Grail, but after getting it, I'm surprised it wasn't because that thing is absolutely incredible. So a lot of you guys that have Speedmasters as your Grail, 100% stick to that because it will be worth it when you finally own it.
And we mean the full size. They're Speedy reduced. They're a little different.
Right.
And,
but the classic Moon watch, Moon watch is the one that I have.
Those proportions are
perfect.
perfect.
So I am lucky enough to currently own 2 of my have-been Grails so
Yeah.
far. So, and then you.
Yeah, well, other than that, though, did you have any projected Grails?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so okay.
We can
So
do that now. Well, I mean,
I was gonna bounce off the one that you have first, and then I'll talk about my future ones.
I only have one Grail, and it's odd because, like, if you watch our other videos, you know, I only try to maintain a collection of 6 watches, and Grails are funny things for me because typically a Grail is something that's uber expensive, and I don't like having too much money on watches. I have a lot of other things I need to invest in. But watch-wise, you know, I wound up buying this watch, and it was my the one and only watch I would ever really need to own. I would be satisfied selling all my watches and just keeping this one because I think it is the perfect watch, at least for me, and that's just my opinion. But that's the Seiko, Grand Seiko SBGR 017 reference. No lume anywhere to be seen on the dial or the handset, so it's going to age perfectly. This beautiful, just decadent layered dial with these, it's stepped in, you can't tell, but the dial is 3-dimensional because there are steps in the dial where you see those lines, and it goes down to that like sort of octagon shape in the center. I don't know what that polygon shape is, how many sides are there, but you can actually see it step down into there. Mm-hmm. It's just beautiful, beautiful watch. I was obsessed, as I mentioned, I was hyper obsessed with Grand Seiko, and this is part of our beginner's guide, but rule number 3 for me was research. So I really just spent a lot of time researching Grand Seiko because I knew I wanted to get a Grand Seiko one day, and I stumbled upon an advert for this particular watch. It was like a cutout from a magazine, and I thought it was the most beautiful thing. And they've made limited edition versions of this watch, and when it came out, it was like an award-winning design. It was one of their premium case designs and finishes, and it was something that was highly admired when it was released, and then it was just unheard of for the longest time. And these are kind of hard to come by with the original box and paperwork, but I found it, and you know, I had to pay a premium for that, but it was totally worth it. There's this cream dial, I'd say off-white. There's a black dial. There's a blue limited edition. It's to commemorate some sort of anniversary for Seiko. And then there's another one that's strictly batons. There's no 12 or 6.
Yeah.
But I think that's just such a beautiful aesthetic. This is sort of the stock standard version of that watch, which is weird to say. I don't know how many of these were produced, but it's ideally it is the quintessential watch for me. It is what a watch should be, and I have it. And you know, Grails for me are a little different. I don't really lust after really expensive things.
I do.
Yeah, I don't generally spend much money on watches. Again, I'd never really have Grails that are beyond $3,000 or $4,000 at most, because I think that's venturing into territory that's far too pricey for what you're getting. The variations between watches in that price range are very, very minimal. Yeah. You know, like a $20,000. It's like and maybe high grade movements, like hot horology, you're paying for, but it just doesn't make sense to me. But one of the other Grails that I have in mind, I do love military inspired watches, or military watches in general, and it's from a German group called Tutima. I might be mispronouncing that. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Tutima makes a watch commonly known as the Tutima Bund, but it's a Tutima military. It utilizes the Lemania 5100, and I'll put an image up. But that's sort of one of my Grails right now, and you can find that watch within the same price range as a Marine Master, anywhere between $1,800 to $2,500, depending on the model year, and obviously its condition and whether it comes with all the accoutrements like the box and the paperwork. But there isn't that much that comes with it. It's actually pretty basic. It either comes on a bund strap, hence the name, or, and I think they're called Commandos now. There's the Tutima Commando Titanium or the Tutima Commando version 2. The reference number is 760 point something or other, like 760.41. But again, I'll show you guys a picture of it so you don't have to search for it. But I love the pushers on it. I love the overall aesthetic. I think it is one of the most beautifully designed watches I've ever seen, as well as, you know, this Grand Seiko. But they're completely different aesthetics. I think, to me, that's like the ideal chronograph. It looks so utilitarian and purpose-built, and it's utilizing one of these amazing movements. And the Lemania 5100 is lauded as one of the best chronographic movements ever created, because one, it's virtually indestructible and easy to repair, and two, just its chronographic functions with a central minute hand counter along with the seconds, and you know, you have the 10 scale, and it's just a very, very well built chronograph. then that's a Grail for me, but it's not an expensive thing, and it's not hard to come by. But again, it's for me. Do I want to have that much money in a watch? I don't know yet. But I certainly, you know what's funny? I was just telling Adam, I literally, so you guys know, I dropped $1,500 on a couple of watches just a second ago, like a few hours ago. And, you know, with just a few $100s more, I probably could have bought the Tutima, but I don't know. I bought it, and I mentioned this in another video, I bought another Tutima that we're going to feature on the show, which is basically the smaller version of this Tutima Military Commando Bund that I want. And we'll see if that satisfies me, satiates my desire for that particular Grail. But that's one Grail that comes to mind, and I've got a couple of mini Grails like that are in the $2,000 range that I'm just not sure I want to put that money in right now. Because again, one of my philosophies is to spend under $1,000. If you've watched our beginner's guide video, I indulge in watches that are under $1,000 because I feel like you can get a great watch for under that price. I have one watch that's above that right now, and I'm actually really satisfied with that.
Yeah.
I don't, my collection's always changing. I'll probably at some point get that Tutima and just bounce another chronograph I have, but that's just how it is.
Yeah.
I don't really have any other Grails in mind right now. I don't really lust after anything that's... There's a couple of oddities I'd really like. There's some older Octavias I'd really love. Heuer Octavia chronographs. Most of my Grails are kind of chronographs, oddly enough. And some dive watches, I'd love to have an original Captain Cook, the Mark I, I believe. They've just recreated it. This is a Rado, a Hyperchrome Captain Cook is what the new ones are called, but it's modeled after an original dive watch. There's a bunch of dive watches I love. And another Grail that's a rarity for me is a Breitling Super Ocean, but like the first versions without the date. And I'll put a picture of that up so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I love the hour markings on it. For the 12, 3, 6, and 9, it has this really beautiful space age aesthetic. I wish the new Super Oceans looked like it, because I'd buy a modern Super Ocean if it looked like that. You can put whatever movement in it, I wouldn't care. If it had that aesthetic, I'd be down. But that's actually one of it's very up there Grail for me. It's one of the original Breitling Super Oceans. Again, I'll throw an image up so you guys can see it, as well as a reference number. A reference number eludes me, but that's a Grail for me. Never take that in the water, but I definitely want that look. Grails for me, I feel like I'm honestly, first and foremost, going for aesthetic and feel. It doesn't matter the brand or the movement or where it's made. Aesthetic and feel seem to be the most important things for me, and then, they sort of fall in, oddly enough, I just happen to like things that are either really hard to come by or up there in price range. Yeah, but that's where I'm at with Grails right now. I have one. I'm satisfied. I don't know if I need any more.
Yeah. Well, there's watches that I want, and then there's watches that I guess I would consider Grails, right? I would love an old gilt dial GMT 1675. I would really still love to experience a Rolex Explorer 2. The 40 millimeter, the 16570.
Is that what about the Polar Explorer?
Yeah, that's the Polar. That's the Polar. And then I would love to have an old school mill sub 5513 double stamp 5513 5517.
I would like one of those. Yeah, but see, that's a real Grail for a lot of people. That's a real Grail.
But see, I would if I had all the money in the world, maybe I would have a collection of those. But I think realistically, my real Grails at this point, I'll start off kind of with dress watches and move to sports watches. For sure, my number one dress watch Grail would be an FP Journe. Either one of the Chronomet versions, either the Chronomet Blue or the Chronomet Sauverne, or however you say that, which has the cream dial. I love FP Journe. I love the styling, and I love the aesthetic of the watch, and that's as well as, of course, the movement and everything that goes along with it.
But nothing looks like a...
Yeah, they're a very unique look, and surprisingly enough, I don't lust after any of the Holy Trinity, Patek, Vacheron, and AP. I'd be totally okay if I never owned one of those. FP Journe is kind of right at the top for me as something that I would love to own one day. Because it's still sort of, it's not like $100,000 watch, you know what I mean? That I would be scared to wear out. It's more. I think you can get a Chronomet Blue for like 20 grand or something, which is still ridiculous, right?
That's actually better than I imagined.
But
yeah.
FP Journe, a Lange. I would love to own a Langenson one day. Maybe a Lange 1, some type of like.
Honestly, yeah, that's on my list too.
Maybe an annual calendar, some type of perpetual calendar. I don't know for sure which, but I know they all have the same level of finishing. They're all incredible. I would love to have a Lange one day. And then three more reasonable sports watches. Kind of representative of my collection today. There's sort of more expensive versions of that. I would love to have the Rolex Deep Sea Dweller, the James Cameron edition.
That's pretty modern. That's a good, yeah.
Which is basically sort of like a step up from the MM300, right? So you'll see what I mean when I say representative of my collection today. I love that. It's probably going to go up in price constantly now since it's sort of a limited edition. I really, really, really love. I guess you could consider this a Grail too. The Rolex Z Blue Milgauss, the blue dial, the bluish green dial.
They're a little costly. They're under 5 figures, and
yeah, you can get one for like $6 grand used in like minty condition, which is sort of like the next step up from my like Rolex Explorer one that I have, right? So it's sort of there's a little bit of a parallel there.
A Grail for a Grail.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then probably my number one Grail right now, though, of all is the IWC Big Pilot, which is also kind of paralleled with my Stoa. Yeah. So either an IWC Big Pilot, either an original reference 5002, which was like the first iteration of the Big Pilot when it first came out, or a black or a blue dial Le Petit Prince, the 5009 reference, the more recent ones. I'll skip the 5004. Don't really like the aesthetic as much on that one, but a 5002 or a 5009 IWC Big Pilot's probably next up on my list. But we're getting closer to $10,000 with that. You know what I mean? I think there's one on the forums now for like $7 grand or 6 and high 6s or something like that.
This is something you see yourself owning.
Yeah, for sure. Especially the IWC Big Pilot.
All these guys.
Yeah, but all of these watches, I mean, these are long term. Because the cheapest one that I mentioned is like $6 grand, and I'm really content with my collection right now. And to get something like that, I would definitely have to sort of flip, or trade some watches towards that. And I'm not in a place where I want to do that because I love the watches that I have. Yeah. I have so much, So, Lange, FP Journe, a couple of Rolexes. A bunch of vintage Rolexes that I really want, but I don't know which one I would consider a Grail.
Well, yours is a good diversity of like rarity and cost.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like the Grails I have, like one is very obtainable, and then the other is.
You could say like a Paul Newman too, right? Like it's a Grail, but that's like a Grail for everybody. So I'm trying to pick something that's a little more unique. Yeah. Sort of.
Well, you can have whatever your taste or your own.
Yeah.
Whatever you want, and I'm curious to hear what you guys have as Grails. It's interesting. It's either rarity or just obtainability and cost. And I feel like mine are rather obtainable, even though those original Breathing Super Oceans don't get too far up there. Mm-hmm. You can get one and the shape, the condition of those watches. I've never seen one aged well, but I think they're so beautiful. I just don't care.
If I had to really narrow it down, I would say the FP Journe and the Big Pilot are probably my like
I love that
big time Grails.
I want to see it in person.
The other Rolexes and stuff are more of like what I would probably really, really want to own, But like true Grails. Big Pilot, FP Journe, I'd be set.
Yeah.
So, and of course there's other watches too, like I'd love to own a Damasco, but it's not necessarily a Grail,
They're up there in cost, and the resale value is like, that's funny, yeah. It's you got to separate Grails from those, those standards. Mm-hmm. They're just cost and rarity, honestly, and some, I have like a pseudo Grail right now that I would consider Grail only because it's hard to come by, but I'd love an automatic Tag Heuer 3000 series chronograph in gray, full-size male in gray, automatic. It's you can find quartz-based 3000 series chronos, but generally it's a two-tone or the black PVD. I'll throw a picture up of what I'm talking about. And I say pseudo Grail because they don't drive a high price. No one cares about the 3000 series. They are a little ugly. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. And I'm in the search for one. If you own one and are looking to sell it, let me know. but they range from like 300 to 600 at most. That used to be like their luxury model and had the sapphire crystal and all the stuff that people liked. But their automatic versions are just, I think, at a 2824s with a module on top for the chronograph.
I forgot one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
But that's a Grail for me, and that's only because it's hard to find. But
I don't know how I just, for some reason, this just popped into my head. But a JLC, anything from the JLC master compressor line.
Oh, yeah?
Always with the, I love the JLC master with the internally rotating bezel and sort of those big, huge crowns.
Send me the
style.
reference number, and I'll show you guys, because I don't...
Yeah, just type in JLC master compressor. You guys will see a bunch of cool different versions of that. Another achievable that's under $6,000 you can get.
Yeah, that's doable though. But guys, feel free to list your Grails in the comment box down below. I'd love to see if we have similar taste in watches. I don't think my Grails are very common. I think for a lot of people they're just obtainable watches, but just the way I collect those are sort of Grails and pseudo Grails for me. Yeah. But I'd love to know what you guys are interested in collecting. Or if you
let
guys
us know your Grails. I want to hear them.
Your Grails are the ones you own, and more in particular the ones you own.
The ones you've been able to finally buy. That's a pretty big achievement.
I love those stories when people are like, I saved for 4 years, and then I finally bought that Rolex GMT. And for a lot of people, like a modern ceramic GMT is... I've got 5 of them, but they, one guy who
but it's not personal to them.
Yeah, it's not really personal.
Like it is to you.
Yeah. I'd love to hear your story or whatever that Grail is. But anyway, guys, so thank you for joining us here. If you like this video, feel free to like it. If you disliked it, that is okay too. Feel free to hit that subscribe button. That actually helps us out the most because we're a growing channel. We want to build this community up as much as possible. So always comment, share, and subscribe. At some point, I'm probably going to drop this spiel because you guys are going to be doing those things anyways, right? I hope so. But guys, if you like this content, do subscribe. We do 2 videos a week. They're very much similar in format. Thank you for joining us.
Later, guys.